Welcome to the everRun 7.5.0.5 New Features and Enhancements training module. In this module, you'll be introduced to the changes found in the everRun 7.5.0.5 software release. The topics covered in this training module include For a full list of new features, enhancements, known issues, and other considerations, please view the everRun 7.5.0.5 release notes, which can be found in the Downloads section of the Stratus webpage. We'll start by looking at changes in the installation process. When the installation software loads, the Welcome to everRun release number window appears with a list of keyboard map values and other options. Use arrow keys to select the country keyboard map for the installation and then press Enter. Please note if you need to set a keyboard map for a different country, see Mapping Your Keyboard in the everRun User's Guide. During the installation process, there is a new Back button option that allows you to return to the previous dialog box if changes need to be made to your selections. You'll first find the Back button on the Select Interface for Managing the System IBIS0 screen. Clicking the Back button takes you back to the Select Interface for Private Physical Machine Connection screen. You'll also find the Back button on the Select the Method to Configure IBIS0 screen, the Configure Interface screen, as well as Confirm Configuration Choices screen. We'll next look at the new features and enhancements found in the everRun Availability console. We'll first look at the System page. The System page displays information about the everRun system and enables you to reboot or shut down the system. The page also displays statistics and resource allocation for the everRun system. To open this page, click System in the left-hand navigation panel. The System page contains multiple sections, each displaying information and statistics of system usage, as well as information and statistics of physical machines and virtual machines. The Virtual Machines section shows a table that displays the state, activity, and name of each VM. Next, you'll see information about the system, including system name, and circle graphs indicating the system CPU allocation, memory allocation, and storage allocation. Scrolling down, you'll see statistics for Node 0 and Node 1. Circle graphs indicate each node's CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization, and network utilization. For disk utilization and network utilization, you can select the logical disk or the network whose statistics you want to display by clicking on the drop-down arrow in each corresponding box. Continuing down, you'll find physical machine details and virtual machine details. Line graphs display the percentages of total CPU capacity, total memory capacity for physical machines only, disk I/O in bytes per second, and network I/O in bits per second. You can select the time span for the statistics in the range of the last 4 hours to the last year. You can also select to display live statistics. Click the arrow to the left of each heading to expand or collapse the display. At the far right of each heading, you can select the entity whose statistics you want to display. For example, under PM detail, to the far right of percentage of total CPU capacity percentage, you can select Node 0 or Node 1 in the Physical Machines drop-down box. You can do the same in the Virtual Machines section as well. Please note that the refresh time for the System page is 10 seconds. We will now look at the new VM Manager user role. To provide more flexibility and limit the use of the admin user accounts, new in the 7.5.0.5 release is a local user role named VM Manager. The VM Manager role allows a user to perform virtual machine-specific tasks without having full administrator privileges. To create a user with the VM Manager role, from the left-hand navigation panel, click on Users and Groups. Click on the Add button found in the upper right portion of the screen. Click the down arrow in the Role field and select VM Manager. Fill in all of the other required information. Once created, the local user role of VM Manager can perform the following. It can perform tasks using all of the available function buttons and actions found on the Virtual Machines page. View all available tabs on the Virtual Machines page, except for the Support tab. Perform tasks of the available function buttons and actions on the Snapshots page. Create and delete VCDs from the Virtual CDs page. And expand volume container sizes. However, the VM Manager cannot expand a volume. Next, we'll look at enabling and disabling VM components. With the 7.5.0.5 release, you can enable or disable certain virtual machine components on individual nodes within the Virtual Machines page of the everRun Availability Console. The procedures allow you to disable or enable a storage device, network port, or VM instance on a specific node, and are intended for maintenance or troubleshooting purposes only. To enable or disable a virtual machine component, from the left-hand navigation panel, click on Virtual Machines. Select a VM and then click the Support tab in the bottom panel. Beneath the Support tab, locate the component that you want to enable or disable, either a volume, network, or VM instance. In the row for the component you want to enable or disable, select Enable Node 0 or Enable Node 1, or select Disable Node 0 or Disable Node 1. A Confirm dialog box appears, asking you to confirm the change. Click Yes to enable or disable the component. A disabled component will be identified with a red X. Some notes regarding enabling and disabling VM components. You cannot enable or disable the same component on both nodes at the same time. You cannot disable both instances of a VM. If you attempt to disable a VM on both nodes, you'll receive an alert stating that the VM instances cannot be disabled on both nodes. You must follow an order of last in, first out when enabling VM volumes on both nodes. For example, if you disable a volume on node 0 and then disable the volume on node 1, and you then want to enable the volume on node 0, you must first enable the volume on node 1 before you can enable the volume on node 0. Let's now look at attaching and detaching a USB device to a virtual machine. In the 7.5.0.5 release, you can attach a USB device to a virtual machine in order to allow the VM to use the device. A USB device may be needed, for example, when a USB-based license is required to install an application in a guest operating system. When you no longer need the USB device, detach it. To attach a USB device to a VM, physically insert the USB device into the active node for the VM. Confirm that the system displays the USB device. Navigate to the Physical Machines page. Click the node into which you inserted the device, and in the lower pane, select the USB device tab. The USB device you inserted should appear in the tab's display. Now in the Virtual Machines page, select a VM. Ensure that the VM is attached to the node in which the USB device was inserted. Let's console into the VM and look at the VM's computer screen to see that no USB devices are present. We'll now attach the USB device. In the bottom pane, click the CD Drives and USB Devices tab. On the USB line of the CD Drives and USB Devices tab, select the USB device from the pull-down menu. Click on Attach a USB to attach the USB device to the VM. After the system attaches the USB device to the VM, the USB device appears in the list of USB devices on the CD Drives and USB Devices tab for the VM. We can now see that the USB device is available in the VM. We'll now detach a USB device from a VM. On the Virtual Machines page, select the VM to which the USB device is attached. In the bottom pane, click the CD Drives and USB Devices tab. On the USB line of the CD Drives and USB Devices tab, click Detach USB Device. If necessary, select the USB device from the pull-down menu. A Confirm dialog box appears asking if you're sure you want to detach the device. Click Yes to detach the device. After the system detaches the USB device from the VM, the USB device name no longer appears in the list of USB devices on the CD Drives and USB Devices tab for the VM. We can now see that the USB device is no longer available in the VM. When you physically remove the USB device from the node, it will no longer appear in the Physical Machines page. Now let's look at a caution and some notes regarding attaching USB devices. Caution: when you attach a USB device to a running, fault-tolerant VM, it prevents the everRun software from migrating the VM to a different physical machine in the event of a failure. To restore fault-tolerant operations, detach and remove the USB device as soon as you finish using it. Notes: do not insert a USB 3.0 or higher device into a USB 3.0 host port. The system does not support a USB 3.0 or higher device inserted into a USB 3.0 port. You can, however, insert a USB 3.0 or higher device into a USB 2.0 host port. The VM must be running in order for you to attach a USB device to it. By default, USB devices are enabled for attachments to VMs. To change this configuration, you go to Preferences and select VM Device Configuration. On this page, you can check the box to disable insertion of CDs on all VMs and/or disable attachment of USB devices to all VMs. When disabled, the Insert a CD or Attach a USB device selection box will be grayed out in the Virtual Machines page. Uncheck the box to enable. We'll now look at monitoring the volume export progress. You can now monitor the export status in the Summary tab for the VM that you're exporting. Progress is reported as the % completed for the whole export and for each volume. When the process is complete, the status changes to export completed successfully. To view the export status, in the VMs page, export a VM. When you click Export VM, the export progress appears under the Summary tab. To cancel the export, click Cancel next to the export progress percentage. A dialog box opens asking you to confirm the cancellation. Click Yes to cancel. We'll now look at Auto Start mode for VMs. You can now configure a starting mode for a virtual machine whenever the everRun system boots. There are 3 modes to choose from. Last, which is the default mode, returns the virtual machine to its state when the everRun system was shut down. If the virtual machine was running, the virtual machine is restarted when the everRun system boots. If the virtual machine was stopped, the virtual machine is not started when the everRun system boots. On. This mode starts the virtual machine when the everRun system boots, regardless of the last known state of the virtual machine. And off. Off does not start the virtual machine when the everRun system boots, regardless of the last known state of the virtual machine. To configure a starting mode for a virtual machine, on the virtual machines page, select a VM. Click the Boot tab in the bottom panel. For Auto Start mode, select one of the following: last, on, or off. Click Save to save the changes. Next, we'll look at mounting and unmounting a USB device or network-mounted folder. You can mount or unmount a USB device or a network-mounted directory using the Mount or Unmount buttons on the Virtual Machines page or the Snapshots page. Mounting a location makes it available to the primary node at the mount point, which is /mnt/ft-export. You can then export a VM or a snapshot on the primary node to the mounted location. When the export is finished, use the Unmount button to unmount the location. A few notes on mounting and unmounting. Do not insert a USB 3.0 or higher device into a USB 3.0 host port. The system does not support a USB 3.0 or higher device inserted into a USB 3.0 port. You can, however, insert a USB 3.0 or higher device into a USB 2.0 host port. You cannot unmount a mounted location that is in use. For example, you cannot unmount a location while a VM is being exported. And now some prerequisites. Prepare the mount location. If you are using a USB device, attach it to the primary node. Confirm that the system displays the USB device by navigating to the Physical Machines page, clicking the node to which you attach the device, and in the lower pane, selecting the USB device tab. The USB device you attach should appear in the tab's display. If you're using a network-mounted folder for a Windows CIFS share or an NFS export, create the folder in your environment where you can store the exported VM or snapshot. Set full read-write permissions on the network-mounted folder to permit file transfers, or, for a Windows CIFS share only, assign read-write permissions to a specific user on the system or domain that hosts the share. Record the location and settings of the NFS export or CIFS share, which you will specify in a later step. To mount a USB device or network-mounted folder, on the Virtual Machines page, select a VM, or on the Snapshots page, select a snapshot. In the lower pane, click the Mount button. Select one of the following for the mount point /mnt/ft-export. Mount device via Windows Share, CIFS, or SMB. Enter a username, password, and repository value. Mount device via NFS. Enter a repository value. Or mount USB. For USB partition list, select a partition from the pull-down menu. Click Mount. The location is mounted on the primary node, and the Mount button changes to Unmount. To unmount a USB device or network-mounted folder, on the Virtual Machines page, select a VM, or on the Snapshots page, select a snapshot. In the lower pane, click the Unmount button. A Confirm dialog box appears, asking if you are sure you want to unmount the location. Click Yes to unmount it. The location is unmounted, and the Unmount button changes to Mount. We'll now look at setting MTU values in the Networks page. New in everRun version 7.5.0.5 is the ability to set a network MTU value within the everRun availability console. Network performance improves with the highest maximum transmission unit, or MTU, that the network can support. You can specify the MTU value for an A-Link or business network using the Networks page of the everRun availability console. To set the MTU of an A-Link or business network, click Networks in the left-hand navigation panel to open the Networks panel. In the top pane, select the A-Link or business network whose MTU value you want to set. Click Config. In the Configured Shared Network window, select the network role, Business or A-Link. Under MTU, type a bytes value from 1280 to 65,535. The default is 1500. Click Save to save the MTU value. The MTU value changes on the network link. To finish up, we'll look at some miscellaneous topics. With version 7.5.0.5, A-Link networks can now use 25 gig Ethernet ports. Please note that the speed of the A-Link network should be equal to or greater than the speed of business or management networks. The host OS has been upgraded to CentOS 7.5. There is now administrator-controlled upgrades, allowing for full control of upgrade steps. And during upgrades, the reasons for qualify failures are now reported in the everRun availability console. And as mentioned earlier in this training module, a full list of new features, enhancements, known issues, and other considerations can be found in the everRun 7.5.0.5 release notes document, which can be found in the download section of the Stratus webpage. This completes the everRun 7.5.0.5 New Features and Enhancements training module. Thank you for viewing this module.